Looking through the lens, sometimes they don't make sense.
Hey yo, welcome back to another episode of Through the Lens Quickies. Today I'll be reviewing, a controversial film, The Battle at Lake Changjin for the Americans, or as the Chinese name, Changjin Hu. This is a Chinese war propaganda film. It was commissioned by the Publicity Department of the Chinese Communist Party, announced as part of the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party. I will say first off that I have no opinions about the politics of everything. Just like a personal thing with me, I don't like to talk about politics. I don't want to get involved in politics. It's too much effort. So I have no opinions as to the politics of all this. I'll just try to give an unbiased review, I guess. Because really, despite this film being the second highest grossing film of 2021 and the highest grossing film in Chinese cinema history, there are there's film stuff in China that does not occur in the West, and I'll talk about that a little bit. This film was directed by Chen Kaige, Shi Ke, and Lin Chaoxian. That's the Mandarin pronunciations of their name. They have different nationalities, so what their actual names are, I wouldn't know that pronunciation of it, so you can just excuse that. Written by Lan Xiaolong and Huang Jianxin, starring a few people, notably Jackson Yi and Wu Jin, and then the other stuff I can just sort of skip over, so because it's quickies, I want to get straight into it. Acting, I would say actually decently good from everyone. Jackson Yi had some interesting moments, but overall it was fine. The real big issue is the American actors, because I'm assuming what they've done is they've taken just random European actors that live in China for the sole purpose of doing English bits, but then doing voiceovers to make them sound American rather than their usual European pronunciations. That's my theory as to what's happened. You can definitely hear a ton of voiceover work and some really bad, obvious voiceover work. So all the Chinese acting was great, fine, leaning towards good. The English acting, at least on the side of the Americans, some of that was really just not right, very, very uncanny. Let's talk about the writing a bit, because this is the main issue with this film, because what it's trying to do is glorify, obviously a propaganda film, glorify Chinese pride. It's a propaganda film. But what they're also really trying to do is to show how horrible war is, how horrifying it is, and it's this conflict between showing really gory scenes of what soldiers would experience and why soldiers get PTSD and that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, they're also trying to glorify their victories. There's a really weird conflict there, because obviously from both sides, people are dying. And as an unbiased watcher, I'm just it's not really, doesn't really make sense. It's a propaganda film where they're both trying to show how horrifying it is that their people are dying, but then also glorifying how they're killing other people. So that doesn't really work for me. Probably doesn't really work for anyone. The other thing is that they try to do humor in this really serious film. There are some humor bits that work because they have a military context. Other bits, well, I say that with a lot of dancing around the spoilers a lot. So you have to watch the film to really understand why I said that. With the other humor bits, they just didn't work. They were too random. It was just out of nowhere. It's in the middle of a really intense battle scene, and then there's just this random humor bit that doesn't make sense at all. So there's some bad writing there. The writers probably haven't really got the clue on about why propaganda films don't really get along well in the West. Transformers. But that aside, yeah, writing, I don't think I can really comment on writing in general, so I'll just move on from that. Just quickly touching on cinematography. Some actually decent shots. There were some good shots, but then there were also some bad shots. The big part of this that really sort of separates Chinese films from Western films is probably the editing and visuals. CGI is like the big thing, right? Because people want to be more and more like Marvel, I guess, with clean visuals. But with I guess like the Chinese way of watching films, majority of China can kind of like, they just like fill in the blanks of where cinematography, where CGI is bad. For a viewer like me, there is some very bad CGI. Explosions, obviously, unrealistic explosions. Just sort of CGI that will make a patriotic Chinese person go, "Oh my god, that's terrible." So that's sort of how China. Oh, and with a lot of the highest grossing films in China, they're always pretty bad CGI, but Chinese audiences won't really bat an eye at that. So there's no real incentive for, I guess, film companies to really improve their CGI, which is, I guess, a problem with the Chinese film industry, but that's a topic for another time and not for me to discuss. But yeah, just in general, CGI was not great. Explosions unrealistic, and people like getting thrown away by explosions that are really close to them when they should have just died instantly. It's not realistic in that sense, and well, that's just general films for you, I guess. Final thing with audio and music. The music was decent. I feel like the audio was pretty. It's the classic like dialogue is quiet in some parts, but in general the dialogue was fine, because in this film there's a lot of screaming. So I guess in normal talking scenes that's quiet compared to the loud explosions and everything. But I feel like everything of that was good in general. To give a final verdict, I would probably at most give it a 5, but I'm probably just gonna give it a 4 or 4.5 and leave it at that. If I had to, I'll go for a 4.5 for my review of the battle at Lake Changjin. So that is my review. Thank you for watching this quickie, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.